We're talking NASCAR on Proline TV for this Tuesday, the 26th of May, 2026. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, being joined by CJ Radune from rotowire.com, who's back from his little vacay running overseas. How's it going, CJ?
It is going well. It's good to be back.
So how was your trip?
The trip was excellent, jam-packed, whirlwind. I need a break after my break, but we're back at it today, so ready to go.
So it was weird doing the preview a week in advance, but we're able to get that in, and then I was able to pop in on Saturday and go over the situation on Saturday, which unfortunately was qualifying was rained out. And he only had practice. So that was really tough to gauge and handicap how the race was going to go. We know how important qualifying can be, just a combination of qualifying and practice at Charlotte. But really, before we get into the race and everything like that, and I said a few things at the end of my report on Saturday regarding Kyle, just kind of letting everybody know, because we don't really talk about it too much. I know everybody who's an avid viewer knows that Ryan Blaney is my favorite driver, but how to kind of remind everybody, and maybe whoever didn't tune in on Saturday, that for the first, I don't know, I guess 75, 80% of my fandom in NASCAR, Kyle Busch was my favorite driver. It's just one of those things, it's just last few years, things haven't gone well, and you're always looking for that next driver to root for. Kyle wasn't going to be around forever. Of course, a little bit too short when it all came down to it. But yeah, I really loved Kyle Busch as a driver. We really missed him the last several years. We were hoping that things were going to start picking up over the last few weeks with his new crew chief. And then all of a sudden, all this happened. And it was a really terrible situation. But as I said the other day, I think the one thing that I really believe, and I don't know if anybody's really talked about this, that I think we're going to miss the most about Kyle is not the past, but the future. I really felt Kyle Busch could have been a great ambassador to this sport. I think he would have been awesome in the booth. And I think this NASCAR media group, especially the ones on Fox, need something. And I thought Kyle could have been the perfect person to maybe sit there for the next 20 years and market the sport. But it is what it is. And this happens whenever we least expect it. So, yeah, I don't really care about what happened. Everybody wants to talk about the medical side of it, but I don't really care about all that stuff. These things happen. I mean, I hope it had nothing to do. I mean, I'll tell you right now, the one thing that popped into my head that pops in all the time the last several years when I hear about young people dying is COVID. Not because of the illness, but because of the drugs that everybody was given when they shouldn't have been given those drugs. A lot of people have had issues. We had that situation with that football player from the Buffalo Bills who almost died on the playing field. So I don't know. Again, I don't really want to get into that, but fact is, we're really going to miss him with what I think he could have done and represented for the sport.
Yeah, I remember when we first started doing this and talking NASCAR together, Kyle was your guy, and Blaney became that guy more recently, but always a Kyle.
Completely different drivers too.
Totally different personalities, totally different people, totally different drivers on the track. Kyle was exciting to watch no matter what he was in, whether he was midfield, back of the field, at the front, he was always exciting. And I agree. I think from a ambassadorship standpoint, everything that he could have given NASCAR in the future, it's a shame that we're not going to be able to see it. I didn't necessarily think about him in the booth, but I think that's a fantastic path that he could have taken. I think about the success that he had as a team owner with Kyle Busch Motorsports and the way that he continued to help mentor and bring along all the young drivers. We heard a lot of the drivers talk about it. Daniel Suarez, one of them before the race on Sunday as well. That type of thing that he brought to the track. And then I was looking forward to him and Larson and Harvick and them mentoring their kids as they come up and kind of take the reins of the sport for the future, even beyond for my kids and next generations to come. So yeah, looking at it that way is even more impactful than just what he's accomplished, which is almost incomparable at this point, as it is what it is. And the new crew chief, I think, was starting to show results. He had some really good results, and just the week prior, he was in victory lane again for trucks. So I just think about the fact that, you know, his last race, not his last race, but one of the last races that he was in, he won. So he was still at the top of his game, still had way more that he could have accomplished. And while you know, the worst was happening to him, he was working hard to improve and get over the troubles that he was in. He was literally in the simulator from the reports that I heard when things started going awry. So always a fighter, always entertaining, and a very big loss to the sport. Absolutely no doubt about that.
You know, I think the one thing that might have also changed his career, which changed a lot of careers, was the next gen car.
Yep.
Because I don't think there's any coincidence that, you know, his career really slowed down with the next gen car. And he was so dominant before that. And that's kind of the reason why they created the next gen car, was to get rid of the dominant factor and to even the playing field. And it's revived a lot of careers that we never would have had if it wasn't for next gen. I mean, Ross Chastain and maybe even Daniel Suarez are two of them, especially Chastain. I mean, he had done nothing. McDowell's another one. So, while there's a lot of good to it, you know, there's that's the one, you know, thing that did happen to Kyle. He just couldn't figure out that next gen car, and then, you know, different affiliations and all that kind of stuff. But he had just such a great career. So, you know, it's a very strange situation because it's happened so quickly. So what's the situation with his car now, with his team? What goes on?
So from my understanding, I don't know if they made it permanent or not, but obviously Austin Hill filled in over the weekend. He's part of the organization. I think it was pretty clear that he was eventually going to make his way to Cup at some point, whether that was going to be another car or, you know, taking one of the spots that are being fielded currently. So I think just those plans probably get accelerated a little bit, and the dominoes start falling from there. I would expect Austin Hill to finish out the rest of the year in the number 33. Instead of the number 8. Richard Childress did say that they were retiring the number 8 until such time as Brexton Busch is ready to come and race in the Cup Series. He can then have the number 8 at that point. So,
how old is he?
I'm 11. I think he's 11, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be the 33 going forward, and I would expect Austin Hill to be the driver, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, Austin, you know, he's earned it. You know, he's had a very good career in the lower levels. So we'll see what he can do. It's not going to be easy, especially that team is just not happening. And now with this is just it's gonna be tough. But, you know, I mean, he's really good in super speedway racing.
For sure.
So maybe in that car he'll be able to pull something off, which would be kind of special.
That would be. It reminds me of Kevin Harvick filling in for Dale Earnhardt unexpectedly, and then being able to pull off a win at Atlanta. You never know what can happen. Maybe this launches Austin Hill into the stratosphere.
As far as Charlotte, so it was another good Charlotte race. There was a lot to like about it. I think the one thing, though, that I don't think was entertaining was the fact that it was like the same 5 or 6 drivers that were battling it out most of the day. Nobody can get into that group. So that was the only thing, is that it really, you know, you knew by going into the last 100 laps or so that we'd seen this all day and it wasn't going to change. We just didn't know who it was going to be. So that was still good. You know, good drivers battling it out. You had no idea who was going to win. But you know, there's about 30 other drivers that really just couldn't get into that top 5 or 6. So I was a little bit disappointed by that. And then I was also surprised. This is strange. Why other crew chiefs didn't do what Daniel Suarez's crew chief decided, and I don't understand why they don't pull these kind of decisions off more often. We've talked about this before. They used to be more, I don't know, creative when maybe this is pre-next gen, but I just grew up just remembering, not grew up, but I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago even, where you just never knew these decisions would just all depend on what the crew chiefs would decide if there was a late caution in a race. And you'd have these usually great depending on the situation, and we a lot of times say, hey, you know what, they just stole the race because of this final caution. But you just don't see that happening anymore. So, good job by the crew chief to go out there and make that call, and also for Daniel Suarez to at least hold off the charge of those really good drivers for a few laps.
Yeah, he did a great job on those 2 restarts, and obviously that and the pit call was what won him the race. But the strategy were changing all night. In addition to the racing, which was great to see drivers battling it out. I'd like to see all manufacturers battling it out rather than just Toyota guys battling it out, but it is what it is. At least we had that. So beggars can't be choosers, I guess. But yeah, I was surprised, Suarez and team, they made the right call at the right time. I think there were plenty of opportunities to go off strategy, play the weather card, whatever the case may be throughout the race, because everybody knew it was coming at some point. It was just more of a matter of when. But they made, like you said, made the right call at the right time. And I'm looking also at Joey Logano and William Byron, who started 33rd and 34th, but both of those guys finished inside the top 10 as well. So they played the strategy card as well, just didn't have the same type of competitive machinery throughout the night that perhaps the Spire Chevrolets did. To me, it was about the 5 Toyota teammates just battling it out. It was Reddick, Hamlin, Briscoe, Gibbs, etc. Again, and I think we've got to expect that for the weeks to come until Hendrick figures out this Chevrolet body style, and or Spire and some of the other teams that are seeing some success with it are able to deliver the consistency of the big teams, which again is very hard to do.
Well, I don't know if that's going to change this week. Even though Toyota's never won, they sure have dominated this racetrack without winning. So You think this would be the year, and we're going to get into that in just a couple of minutes. So that's what happened at the Coke 600. It almost got through with 400 with the whole what was it, 600 miles?
Yeah, 600 miles. They were 27 laps short.
Okay. How many laps were there?
400. They got
400. Okay, so it's 400 laps, 600 miles. Got it.
Yep.
So okay, let's talk about this week, and this is the 6th race for Nashville. They've had 5. This will be the 5th for the next gen. So it started in 2021, right after COVID, and then they had 1 race just prior to next gen, and then we had the next 4 next gen. So let's go over some of the trends here first, because there really isn't a track out there that we can say is similar to Nashville. It kind of stands alone. I mean, the only thing that sticks out is the fact that it's a concrete track like Bristol and Dover, but other than that, there's nothing.
Yeah, it's shorter than the 1.5 mile tri-ovals that we're used to seeing. It's concrete, like you said. It does not have progressive bankings. Many of the 1.5 mile ovals that we see do have the progressive banking, which opens up the lines. Concrete races differently than asphalt, et cetera, et cetera. This track, in my opinion, just on the surface, based on the banking and based on the shorter, kind of incomparable, stands amongst itself, I guess.
All right. So let's talk about some of these trends, though, because these, again, Toyota has really been on top of it here without winning. But this is really the thing that you have to keep in mind, and we'll talk more about this on Saturday when we go over the qualifying and practice and all that. But it would be no surprise that if we talk on Saturday, or when we talk on Saturday, that we'll say Toyota had another big day at Nashville, because Toyota has had the fastest sessions in both qualifying and practice on Saturday in 3 of the 4 next-gen weekends. So both sessions, they were the fastest and they were the best. And that has not translated into wins, though. Chevy had the first 3 wins. Ford has had the last 2. And really, if you look at it, Toyota has been the best manufacturer here. Chevy's been a solid second because they got the 3 wins. And Ford, even though they're third, they've really picked it up the last couple of years to make it interesting. And then who knows what happens this year. So, yeah, it's one of those things where, and I'm sure we're going to go over with the odds, that a lot of the drivers early are probably going to be a lot of Toyotas.
Yeah, I expected that, even before looking at the trends, just because of how dominant Toyota has been this season. I just don't see them giving up. I see Denny Hamlin won first stage at Nashville the year Ryan Blaney won. Christopher Bell won both stages at Nashville the year that Joey Logano won in 24. The interesting thing to me, I guess, would be that both of the Ford wins came from starting positions outside the top 10. Logano's and Blaney's race seemed to have more cautions. The other 3 of the Chevrolet wins all came from within the top 5. So, very interesting trends. I do have a very strong suspicion that Toyota's winless streak at Nashville is going to end this weekend, though.
Yeah, it's probably the case, but they got a race, and we've got to preview them and give you our picks. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let me pop up the odds. Who do you think is going to be the favorite?
It kind of tough this week because you've got both Reddick and Hamlin that were really strong last week, both in Toyotas. So, just based on Reddick continuing to land top 5s, I'll give him just an edge over Hamlin.
Well, Denny's really been taking the center stage here lately, as we saw it again last week. Look at this big gap.
I might go Tyler Reddick there.
Yeah, I think the All-Star race has really, because it influenced the Coke race.
Sure.
Even though Hamlin, we knew Hamlin would have a good day. Remember, he had only won once ever at Charlotte, and he was the favorite. And now here he's the heavy favorite. So, he's just a hot driver right now regarding Vegas. And this is it's not a surprise that Denny's the favorite. It's just a surprise that it's now. Look, this is Draft Sharks, or DraftKings, excuse me. I always get that confused. So DraftKings is going to be different than any other sports book. So maybe the regular sports book. Let me see. Well, it's a little bit. I mean, my sports book has Hamlin 4 and Reddick 6, so they still have him favored by a couple points.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they should be closer together. I think Reddick's got the consistent speed. Hamlin, yes, he's been leading a lot of races, very competitive. I think this is too big of a gap. I think they want you to go with Reddick here, and I think that's probably a good choice. Obviously, Hamlin's going to go out there and be competitive, but like you said before we started talking about the actual drivers, they got to go out there and race. And Hamlin's got 3 front row starts out of his 5 Nashville tries, best finish of 3rd, which he did twice. Reddick's got a 3rd place and a 9th place just in the past 2 seasons. He's been stepping it up and qualifying inside the top 5 on a pretty frequent basis as well. So I think these 2 guys deserved favorites. I think they should be closer together, and because they're so far apart, I would go Reddick.
Yeah, I think the reasoning makes a little. I mean, it makes sense because Denny has been really good here. Mm-hmm. We talked about how good Toyota's been here. Well, Denny's like the kingpin of why Toyota's been really good here without winning. He's led 70 or more laps in all 4 next gen races, and his average start is 3rd in next gen. His average finish is 6th. So he's been incredibly good. He's got a couple of poles. So Reddick, meanwhile, has only started to pick things up the last 2 years, 9th and 3rd the last 2 years. But we just know that Reddick is just a different driver this year. And he's the one that's gobbling up all the wins. So he's definitely the value of these two, no question. All right. Who do you think's next?
I'll go out on a limb and say Ty Gibbs.
Oh, it sounds like a limb. Yeah, I think you're missing someone.
Oh, yeah. Why didn't I think of Bell? Yes, clear miss on my part. I'm not back from vacation yet. Bell makes complete sense, yeah.
Yeah, so let's go with these 3 here, Bell, Blaney, and Larson. Yeah, Bell, and look, a few drivers really had to get going on Sunday, and that's exactly what they did. And one of them is Bell, the other one's Larson. So really important because they just had nothing going on, especially Bell coming into that race. He had a very strong car, might have even won it. So I think that's important to note. He's been top 10 in 4 of 5 races here. And he led 131 laps in the 2024 race before he crashed on lap 227. Now, keep in mind, when you take a look at all of the stats from 2027, you have to remember that in the 2024 race, you have to remember that it was kind of a fluky race because there was a bunch of restarts to end the race. And it was a few mileage race because of it. And so you just have to keep that in mind, meaning that some drivers that may have had good stats in the race, like Christopher Bell, who knows what could have happened under normal circumstances. But again, he had crashed anyway. So yeah, just keep that in mind. That was the race that Logano won in 2024. Blaney, meanwhile, his teammate won last year. So they got back-to-back Penske wins. And Ryan led 139 laps. He was definitely this is like a typical Blaney dominant race where right after the first stage, it was just all Blaney. He just took over command of the race, and he was the best driver last year. Now, keep this in mind. He's crashed twice, 2 out of 5. But when he hasn't crashed, he's finished 1st, 3rd, and 6th at this racetrack. He's only also started once in next gen. So we'll see what he starts. So I might have a good indication because Ryan's not the greatest qualifier. So if he starts in the top 10, that might be a good sign that he's got a fast car. And Kyle Larson, again, I think it was really important. I feel a little bit better now about, especially with the odds. They haven't gone crazy with them. I feel a lot better now thinking about Kyle Larson after the day he had on Sunday, the night he had on Sunday. He's been in the top 10 in all 5 races here with 3 top 5s. He's got the win in 2021. That was the last race before next gen. He dominated the race, 264 out of 300 laps. That's the whole reason why we have next gen. But even though he's got the top 5s, he hasn't led a lap in the next gen. We have to take that into consideration. Average start overall 9.4, average finish 5.2. That's really good. He's definitely the best of the Hendrick cars that you need to consider.
Yeah, all these guys have had a race or 2 at this track that they just dominated at. Larson's, unfortunately, for next generation car, but since then his worst finish has been 8th, and that's 4 straight races, including last year when he started 28th. Bell and Blaney, like you said, dominated races within the next gen era. Blaney actually got the job done with a victory last season from 15th, and Bell should have won, back in 2024 when he started 3rd, ended up finishing 36th because of a crash. So all of these guys, probably pretty good picks. You need to give the edge to Toyota then, which puts Bell at the top. He had a great run last week at Charlotte. I think that he's starting to get over the struggles that have kind of held him back compared to some of the other Toyota cars at the early part of the season. So I expect Bell to be really strong this weekend. Blaney probably will end up being the best Ford. He was the best Ford at Charlotte. I would probably expect that again this weekend. And like you said, Larson, certainly one of the best Chevrolets, definitely the best Chevrolet right now at Hendrick. So I still am just concerned with Hendrick getting on top of the new Chevrolet body. I think when it comes down to it, they just don't have the edge and the legs over the Toyotas. So in that order, I would say Bell, Blaney, and Larson.
Okay, let's move on to the next group. So we've got Briscoe, Byron, Elliott. We'll go with those three. They're all 12-1. And so out of these three, I don't think, Briscoe, there's just not a whole lot of why I would take Chase Briscoe. Maybe the good thing is that last year, in his first year with Joe Gibbs, they showed some life here because he had done nothing before that. So at least he showed life when he was on the pole and led 51 laps. Now, he still has never had a top 15 here, even last year. His average start 16.4, his average finish 26.8. That's really bad. But again, good sign that he started off early, at least in good fashion last year in this race, and then just didn't finish the way he would have liked. Byron, meanwhile, had a very strong car last year. So he really was one of the top drivers in this race last year. His average starting position, though, is 6.4, and his average finish is 13.6. So not exactly what you want to see. And if you look at it, too, because this is not good for fantasy, he's improved his position in all 5 races just once. And that was in 2021 when he started 4th and finished 3rd. So fantasy-wise, I don't think William Byron is the way to go. But then you've got Chase Elliott, who's sitting there at 12-1. He, of course, has a win here and also has a kind of similar situation to Byron. His average start is 9.6. His average finish is 15.4. He's only led 1 lap at his last 3 races. The last 2 races haven't been all that great, but he also hasn't started in the top 10 in the last 3. So we'll see if he has a fast car on Saturday, which might change things. But if not, then I'm not sure I feel confident about Chase in this one. And a very disappointing race last week, too, for Chase. He admitted just bad mistake. And that's the one thing that does kind of, I do kind of wonder about with Chase lately, is that as much as he is a much better driver now than he has been the last few years, and he's got good value, championship value, these situations like last week just keep popping up in my head that I don't know. Can I trust Chase Elliott to win a championship? I don't know why that is. I just never thought that I'd be saying that. But I think there's something going on up here when it comes to, I don't know if it's pressure he puts on himself. I don't know. But I don't know what's happened and transformed Chase since the player he was as a champion to the driver he is now.
Yeah, last week was definitely not Chase Elliott-like. He is the only other driver besides Reddick this season to have multiple victories, though. So some things are going right sometimes. But like you said, the consistency doesn't seem to be there. And the way that the championship is structured now, that consistency is more important than it has been for the past several years. So this team's got to get on top of the Chevrolet body style. I think that Elliott, with the 2 wins, is probably trying to stretch, as are all the other Hendrick drivers, and until they figure out what those issues are and how to solve them with their settings, to be able to unlock the potential that Spire's found and some of the other teams. I think we might continue to see Elliott and other Hendrick cars have their inconsistent and random issues here and there, much like Kyle Larson has been known for throughout the past several seasons. So Elliott is not one that I would choose this week, just basically because the past 2 seasons at Nashville, he's been kind of mid-pack, started 13th and 11th, finished 18th and 15th. He was top 5 the 2 seasons before that, so it clearly shows some steps backward, plus a terrible result last week. Just want to see how he rebounds. Plus, I don't think that Hendrick and Chevrolet have the edge on the Toyotas yet still, so that's going to take some time. William Byron, He squeaked out a top 10 last week somehow. Hasn't been really in the conversation much. And again, it's the same problems that are affecting him as are affecting Elliott. So until Hendrick's able to figure it out, I don't think we're going to see much from William Byron either, which leads me to Chase Briscoe. I think there's a little bit of a silver lining this week with Briscoe. He is in a slump without a doubt. He showed some speed last week before he ended up crashing. Which was unfortunate. Last year at this track, similar, he started on pole, led a couple of laps, but ended up finishing 17th, led 51 laps actually, to be totally transparent. So I think he's got some potential and upside value. So I might go with Briscoe from a fantasy perspective, certainly over the other two. And the fact that he's in a Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing, and when he switched to Toyota, lo and behold, that's when the success came at Nashville, what little it has been, obviously. So give him another round at the track in a Toyota, and we'll see what he's able to do. So I would put Briscoe at the top of this list, probably Byron, and then I would just avoid Chase Elliott based on last week and some of the problems that we already talked about.
All right. Now we go to another three drivers, and we have a value play here for CJ with Ty Gibbs at 18-1, driving a Toyota. Keeping in mind though that Ty Gibbs is fared well at this racetrack. He's played here he's driven in the Cup Series 3 times. His average start is 15.3. His average finish is 22.7. He does not have a top 10, and he's only led 2 laps. So I can understand why maybe he's not getting any love here regarding the odds. Joey Logano, meanwhile, has the win we talked about a couple of years ago. Matter of fact, the last 2 years, Logano has finished 1st and 4th, even though he's only led a combined 19 laps during those 2 top 5s. He's probably a really solid fantasy play, especially if he, say, doesn't qualify all that great, maybe 15th, because I think you can count on Joey to finish in the top 10 here. You know, his average start is 8.8. His average finish is 8.6. So I would consider Joey to be an interesting potential fantasy option, and maybe even a win option, because the odds are now getting a little bit higher here. Ross Chastain. I don't know. I don't know if I can expect Ross Chastain to win any races right now. I got to see him leading some laps. You know, things have not gone all that well for him. Every time you think maybe things are going to start turning, they don't. He's got the win here, and that was from the pole. He led 99 laps in the 2023 season, and he's been solid in his career here. His average start, his average finish are the same, 10.4. Last 2 years, though, he's only finished 11th and 33rd. So out of these three, I just have no faith in Ross Chastain right now. Gibbs, I probably want to see how he does more than anything on Saturday, because if he has a really good day on Saturday, then that'll make me feel a lot better about taking him.
Agreed. I think that what led me to call out Gibbs when I was taking my complete random guess was just the fact that he's consistently top 10 every week and has been all season. He had a quick rough patch at Talladega in Texas, but the 2 races since then, he's come back and finished 3rd at Watkins Glen and then 6th last week at Charlotte. Every other race outside of the All-Star race at Atlanta has been 9th or better. So he's always in the top 10, almost or very frequently inside the top 5 as well. So I do think that Gibbs has a lot of upside potential versus his past statistics at this track. Joey Logano, obviously very consistent, a lot of experience at this track, a consistent top 10 finisher, average finish of 8.6, average start of 8.8. So I think he's a great forward play right there. And then Chastain, I would honestly take Shane Van Gisbergen over Chastain if you force me to choose today.
Oh, wow.
I want to see where they qualify before locking that in before Sunday's race. But based on the way that SVG used the track position from qualifying being canceled at Charlotte, I would expect SVG to be up in the top 15 this week at Nashville. And we know Ross Chastain has been struggling this season and has hit more than his fair share of problems. He even said after he was knocked out of the race at Charlotte that SVG is figuring out what he needs from the car, and Chastain is not figuring that out yet this season. So I think SVG's got a leg up there. So I would avoid Chastain. I think Logano is a very solid pick. And then if you want to take a flyer on upside potential, I think Gibbs is your man.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't believe when I did the show on Saturday night, we went over the odds. I could not believe that Shane Van Gisbergen was 350 to 1.
Crazy.
On Saturday when it was starting in the top 5. I know he didn't qualify there, but based on the position, that just was really crazy. And he did what he did. Sure made things interesting for a potential monster long shot win. Okay, let's now move on. Let's see about these 4 hosts of our Buescher, Wallace, and Keselowski. And with let's see, with hosts of our, the problem is, well, actually not the good thing is, I should say, is that I think he's going to be one of these drivers you want to look at if he doesn't qualify well, or if he qualifies like 15th or 20th, because if you take a look at his performance last year, that should give you a lot of hope that if because he was 26th last year and he finished 2nd. So now that had to do with strategy. Matter of fact, I think it was like I think he was, based on my notes, he was 7th on the last green flag stop, but he had pitted early and ended up in 2nd after everything cycled out, and that's the way it stayed. So he kind of benefited from that, but still, a big move from 26th to 2nd, and that has to give you some hope in fantasy. I said this last week, and he was 12 to 1 last week, which I just think was ridiculous. At least you're getting 25 to 1 now, and that's more like it. Because it's very hard for these young drivers, to win a second race so quickly. And I'm not saying he can't win it this year. I'm just saying, it hasn't been very long ago that he won. But at least we're 25 to 1. And I definitely would prefer him over the other 2 drivers. I mean, Buescher has just not been good here. He's not a good fantasy driver here as well when you take a look at the stats. Wallace at least has some good fantasy value too. He's got a couple of top 10s the last 2 years, and he's gained 23 spots in those last 2 years. He's never led a lap here, but he is driving a Toyota, and so he's not the worst idea in the world at 35 to 1. Again, it's a big number. I still prefer Hocevar, but I think Wallace is. I definitely prefer Wallace over Buescher, and we even have Keselowski here. Right now, I don't know. I don't. Not only do I not like the groove that Keselowski is in lately, but I don't like his stats here at all. And not good. Not a good fan. Typically, he's at least been a good fantasy driver the last several weeks, but not here. This has just not been a good track for him.
Yeah, Keselowski, past couple of weeks, taken a step backward from where he started the season. Seems to have cooled a bit, and this is a track where he's not been good at. Started inside the top 10 the last 2 seasons, but finished outside of the top 20. So maybe that'll change around. Maybe this can be a way to get some of that early season momentum back, but I would avoid Keselowski this week for sure. Buescher, like you said, there's not really much to like about him here. He's got 1 top 5. That was when he finished, or when he started 9th. So if he has a good qualifying day, maybe consider him, but I would expect him kind of to finish around where he qualifies. If he qualifies 15th, I would expect him to finish around 15th. If he qualifies 10th, I'd expect him to finish around 10th. So unless he is starting on the front row and shows me something magical on Saturday, I'm not going to be going Chris Buescher. So that leaves us with Hocevar and Wallace, which are the 2 obvious good picks out of this group. I know you chose Hocevar, and I can see why as your top 1. But because of that, if I'm thinking about the win, I'm going to go for Bubba Wallace because he's in a Toyota. He had some problems last week that were not of his making. He got some damage, so he ended up just kind of on damage limitation control for the rest of the race. Unfortunately, he did have some strong results earlier in the season. He's just got to get that consistency back, and I think this week we see Wallace take a step forward, maybe If everything goes right, he could be a good long shot play for the win because he's in the Toyota and he's had some good results earlier this season, and he's got back-to-back top 10s specifically at this track. So I expect a little bit more out of Bubba Wallace versus his averages at Nashville this weekend, which is why I'm putting him top of the bunch.
Yeah, I actually think it'd be better off. I mean, I feel just fine if he qualified outside the top 10. I'd be in a much better position to both take him. I'd still take him with the same odds because I don't think they would change much then. If you started like 12th or 13th, you still get close to 35-1. And then also he'd be a great fantasy option based on his last 2 years of gaining 23 spots. So yeah. And then the Toyota deal, that definitely cements that as a solid choice. All right. Well, Daniel Suarez, he's not going to win 2 straight. Let's just get that over with. And he doesn't have much going on here well as far as results, but he's actually been good the last 2 years in fantasy. So he's gained 25 spots the last 2 years, but he's started 30 outside the top 30 because of it. So, hey, if he starts outside the top 30 on Saturday, we'll bring it up. Cindric hasn't shown much here, so I'm not excited about Cindric this week. Except a big number at 65-1. Bowman, the same thing. I don't like Bowman here at all. Matter of fact, I'd rather take Cindric than Bowman. And Josh Berry, it looked like he was going to potentially have a good day on Saturday. Thought he was a good fantasy option starting way back, good practice speed. Had the early incident, then he came back, found himself in the top 10, and then I'm not even sure did he have another accident or something like that? I forgot what happened to Berry.
Charlotte?
Yes, because he finished way back, and I don't remember if he got into trouble with one of the incidents. So anyway, he's not a really good fantasy option here, though. Terrible, actually. He's lost 34 spots in the last 2 years. Why do you think Josh Berry? I mean, are you surprised he hasn't been better this year?
I am. And for the same reason that I'm surprised that Cindric still isn't continuing the early season momentum that he had. I think that, again, Toyota just has the leg up on the field. I think if Toyota weren't who they were, I think we'd see Josh Berry, Austin Cindric being a bit more competitive. Joey Logano as well. I think, again, like everybody is just striving to drive above what their equipment is right now. And so I think that problems are happening. And those that aren't in that advantage of having a Toyota, specifically a Gibbs Toyota, they're just trying to grasp at straws. So I am surprised at Berry. I'm a little bit surprised at Cindric as well. There's still plenty of time to turn it around. So having said that, I agree. Suarez likely not going to win back-to-back races, so I'm not going to choose him. Berry, I was disappointed that he got collected last week because I think, again, it was another track where he had potential. Bowman, there's nothing to go on for him here. Plus, he's just been not great after missing a couple of races earlier in the year with vertigo. He's still not back to the Bowman that we know yet. And then that basically leaves you flip of the coin between Cindric and Berry. And honestly, I would probably go with Cindric just because I think he's been a little bit more consistent. He's in the proper Penske equipment, not the satellite team Wood Brothers that Berry is. So I would give Cindric the edge. But I do expect more from Cindric and Berry as the season goes on.
Yeah, I actually think that, if you throw out getting in the wreck on Saturday, on Sunday night, Cindric at least has been fairly consistent since the bad start to the season. Now, he hasn't had enough top fives to our liking, but he's mixed in top tens with, he's got 3 races. Actually, if you look at it, before last week, he had a run of 7 straight of 16th or better.
Yep.
So at least he's doing that. And then last week happened, which kind of put him back to where it was the beginning of the season when he had all those bad issues. But at 65-1, considering his teammates have won the last 2 years, is not a bad it's not a bad value long shot option.
I think he's a great long shot option. And when you put it that way, last week really is the main reason why he slipped out of the top 16 in the standings. He's behind Ryan Preece now, but looking at his top 10 total, it's 4. He only has 1 top 5 though. And like you said, that's been the problem. If he can start getting more top 5s, I think that's the Cindric that we expect.
Okay. Here's Ryan Preece, and Preece just doesn't seem to have much going for him here. So nothing that really sticks out to me. Moving on, we've got Zane Smith. I think Zane Smith is an excellent long shot choice here this week. He had a great run on Sunday night, and he's only raced in the Cup Series twice at this racetrack, and he's gained 48 spots in 2 years. Second, of course, in 2024 when he started 36th. And like I said, there was a little flukiness going on here in 2024, but still, and that's as good as you're ever going to see for fantasy wise. So he's a really good bargain. I'm sure you're going to get a really good value salary cap number for Zane Smith you want to keep an eye on. And Eric Jones is also somebody you want to keep an eye on. Eric Jones, in his last 4 years, all next gen, of course, has gained 34 spots, including 7th last year when he started 14th. So this has been good for Eric Jones. And since Corey Heim is a Toyota, I wouldn't even rule him out to be a really good fantasy driver on Sunday, considering, he's going to be bottom of the basement numbers. You're going to have some, and we'll see how he does in qualifying and in practice. I'm not saying he's winning the race, but if he winds up starting in the 20s, he may not even be a bad fantasy option.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. I think all 3 of these guys are better picks than the last bunch that we talked about. Zane Smith continues to live up to the potential that I think we saw from him in the junior series several years ago. So it's great to see him doing well, definitely punching above his weight, and I would expect that to continue this week. Same reason that you talked about Jones being a great fantasy driver, Zane Smith is as well. His average start from, I know it's only 2 races here at Nashville in the Cup Series, but his average start is 31.5, but his average finish is 7.5.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So yeah, Zane Smith, absolutely put him up there. Corey Heim, I think he's going to be another one that follows in the Zane Smith kind of mold, coming up from just domination in the Truck Series and the time he's been there. 3 top 5s at Nashville in the Truck Series from 4 starts. So I think Corey Heim, plus the fact that we're talking all Toyotas here for the most part, except for Zane Smith, I think all 3 are great fantasy options.
All right. So let's move on. There's Shane Van Gisbergen at 100-1. And yeah, I mean, in this group, he would stick out, even though he was 25th last year, started 23rd. So he didn't really show us anything in his one trip here last year. But it's just the fact that the other drivers haven't shown anything at all here. So we'll see if Shane can keep that momentum going.
Yeah, why not? Like I said, I'd choose him over Ross Chastain at this point. And if I can get 100-1 for doing it, of course, I want to see where he qualifies. If he has a good qualifying, around the top 10, I think SVG's in store for a great oval performance. He's been doing a great job coming up to speed on these tracks. Look forward to that continuing.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if he doesn't qualify well, but his practice number is decent, then he'll probably be a really good fantasy option.
Yes.
But if he qualifies really well, then you'd have to really look at him as more than that.
Correct.
So, and we'll talk more about that on Saturday. All right. And then the rest of the drivers, nobody really sticks out at all. Again, there's Austin Hill, 150-1. Again, he's in better equipment. Yeah, none of these drivers, though, unfortunately, have stuck out for any reason that I could see in the data I looked over.
Agreed.
Okay, so let's go with our picks. Where are we? Where's my picks page? Okay, here we go. All right, so I've got the first pick this week. Oh, and now this is really a good reminder to anybody who gets into handicapping for a living. You're going to go through some really bad spells. And then sometimes you're going to do exactly what you see when you see people who are in the zone. They could be in the zone in handicapping as well. And right now, we just happen to be in the zone because Daniel Suarez was my third pick last week as a long shot. And get this, that is the fourth straight win. Right now, we got 4 straight going. We've got Hocevar winning Talladega, Elliott winning Texas, SVG, of course, his win over Watkins Glen. That was easy. And Suarez's win. So 4 straight wins. And get this, 6 out of the last 7. So so that account is now plus $590. So we're doing good in that one. And everything is just working out. So we'll see if we can keep that going. All right. So first pick, let's go all the way down here to the big boys. All right. You know, I'm going to go ahead and because I'm getting better value here, I'm going to take Christopher Bell.
You're making it hard on me. I will also.
Oh, did CJ freeze? I thought that was me for a second. All right. Anyway, CJ will be chiming in here in a second, I'm sure. Let's see who I think he is going to have to choose from. You got Denny Hamlin and Reddick. Those are the obvious 2. And then we have, and again, we're going to be looking at Toyotas. So all the Toyotas that I have written down here as options are Hamlin, Reddick, Gibbs, Wallace, and Haim and Jones. Those are all the Toyotas that I think are the best options out there. As you can tell, CJ is going to reboot and come right back. Let me just see here, make sure. I'm going to say which Toyota I wouldn't be interested in. How about that? Let's see. You know, Riley Herbst may not even be a bad fantasy long shot play either. I'm going to wait and see what Riley Herbst does on Saturday. That's a driver that I think has at least shown a little bit of something. It's kind of cooled off the last month, but probably, you know what? Probably Briscoe and John Hunter. Those would be the 2, especially Briscoe, because he's, you know, a competitive price. I think at 12-1. I'm just not sold on the way Briscoe is going at this point in time. And, you know, I liked them last week, you know, so I do have to consider that. But part of the problem is that, see, even though he had a good car last week, I never really got the feeling that he was going to compete. If there was a last 40 laps, that he was going to be able to compete with those top drivers last week. I just never got that sign, that feeling, because he was put in position several times during the race and could not pass the leader, whether it was Reddick or I think it was Hamlin on another circumstance. He just could not really handle that situation as much as I would have liked. And so that was disappointing. And then, of course, it just unraveled for him. But, I mean, I think the other thing, too, is that I don't really see a whole lot of value with Briscoe right now. You know, he's sitting here at 12-1, and there are so many other options that I think you could choose from that are even bigger numbers. But, you know, he is doing better than he was to start the season. So you have to keep that under consideration. He really had nothing to start the season. And now if you take a look at the way he's gone up until, well, look, he's had, I'm not going to go crazy about Talladega. All right. Talladega's Talladega. Then he has a good day at Charlotte and then ends up in a wreck. So those are like 2 situations that I have to just forget about. But he didn't have a good finish. So really, if you look at it, there's what, 4 other races that have happened in the last 6. He's got 3 top 5s in 3 of them, and the other was the disappointing finish at Texas. So he is doing better. He does have the runner-up at Atlanta, but again, that's the Super Speedway. And he was 8th at Vegas. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of his finishes have been 23rd or worse for Chase Briscoe. So he's getting there. He will. It's too good of a team. He's too good of a driver. He had too good of a year last year. And this is the thing, that even though it's a different system regarding the playoffs this year, or the way that they're putting together their playoffs this year, it's still. I don't think the one thing that will change, that is the drivers that get hot late will end up winning the championship. So that means Tyler Reddick is going to have to keep this pace going, or maybe he cools off for a little bit and then he ends up with a really good finish. As we pop CJ back in. So anyway, that's
where did you lose me?
Just about as you were about to give your pick. So we didn't hear anything from you. So
all right, well,
it's your pick time.
All right, for some reason I got the network connection lost, and I kept talking, and then
that's right. You were you said how I made it difficult for you because I chose Christopher Bell.
Correct. So because you chose Bell because of value, that left me with Hamlin and Reddick. And because you went with value by going with Bell, I'm going to go the opposite direction and go with Hamlin over Reddick.
Wow. Okay. I wouldn't have suspected that after your early assessment. Okay. I like it. Going with Hamlin. And we'll see. Matter of fact, Denny is Denny the favorite right now? Or is it Reddick?
I would think Reddick is. No.
Tied.
All right. Okay. That makes sense.
3-1, both of them. And then, So you still got some bargains out there. I think Bell's a bargain at 10-1. Yes. Briscoe's a bargain. 16-1. That's what I was just talking about. He's going to get hot at some point. Even Gibbs is at 25-1.
Yep.
So so there's some good bargains out there to be had. I don't think there's anybody I would look at further than that. Okay. Next pick. So let's see. We'll go a little bit further back now. And I'd have to, or this probably would make the most sense. Yeah. I'll go with Gibbs.
Very good choice. Who's above Logano?
Elliott. Oh, yeah, these are 12s. Byron, Briscoe.
Logano versus Briscoe for me. I feel like I need a Ford, so I'll go to Logano.
Okay. You sure you need a Ford?
I think so.
You don't have to grab a Ford, but okay.
My next pick's going to be a Toyota. So.
Oh, okay. You don't want to go all Toyota. Who knows? Maybe we would have had all 6 Toyotas. All right. So, wow. I think this is now between Wallace and Cindric. So, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take Bubba.
Well, that was my Toyota pick. So, Let's go with
other long shots. You got Zane Smith, Jones, Heim, Cindric. Who else? SVG.
this one's tough now. The perils of picking second. Yeah, I guess I got to go with Cindric. When we get down to the bottom, Wallace was who I was going for. That's why I was choosing Logano first, because I didn't want to have all three Toyotas, but I do think that Cindric is the right pick at this level.
Yeah, I would have taken Cindric if you would have taken Wallace. So yeah. So we've got them covered either way. And and then the ones that we didn't take that are still on the board, obviously Reddick, and then you got Larson and Blaney. And then the long shots, Zane Smith, Hyman, Jones, and who knows? Maybe even you want to pay attention to SVG or some other crazy idea. But there you go. Okay, so what's next week?
Next week is
Michigan.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
So we've got Michigan, and then we have Pocono. So at least we got Michigan. Because then it's going to be Pocono, where we have no idea what to expect from San Diego, from the street race. Or what is it, a street race or a road course?
Street race.
Okay. And then we've got Sonoma. And then, of course, we do get Chicago back, which could be real interesting. With the 1.5, it's a 1.5, it's next gen. So maybe that'll be, who knows? Maybe that'll be a good race. Could be.
Yeah, I think any of the 1.5-ish mile ovals, I think at this point are up for great races. Certainly better than the street course in Chicago. So.
Oh yeah.
And then you got the Super Speedway Atlanta, which is pretty exciting as it is now. And then looking ahead, probably not much until you get to Daytona before the chase starts.
Yeah, it kind of slows down. So there's some good races. There's some other tracks. We got to go through the whole North Wilkesboro deal. Indianapolis. We have no idea what we're going to get out of that. It's usually not very good. Iowa, Richmond, New Hampshire, all that kind of stuff. So, but then we'll get to the playoff situation. So things are going to start heating up soon enough. And we'll be back again next Tuesday. I will be back on Saturday, probably in the evening. I would expect that they're going to qualify late because of the night race. And again, this is one of those situations that absolutely makes no sense, that we have a race on Sunday night.
Yeah, I asked for night races. I just want them on Saturday nights.
What in the world? There's no holiday on Monday.
Nope.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're thinking. So that's what we're dealing with. So anyway, I'll be back on Saturday to go over qualifying and practice. We'll have some updated data to share with you, and definitely go inside the picks for the race. Meanwhile, we'll have a link in the description of the video on Friday for CJ's report at rotowire.com, his DFS report on this race. And we've got a link in the description of this video right now where you can check out the site where CJ puts his articles. And that's just for the Cracker Barrel 400. You do just NASCAR Cup?
We got trucks out there too, but you can follow the link. Like you said, that's already out there now, and you'll see all my articles. So when it comes time for Formula One, when it comes time for trucks and Cup, you'll see my fantasy previews with best picks in terms of bets that are out there. And then also the recap, the power rankings that we do every Monday after a Cup race.
And we didn't even talk about the exciting finish at the Indianapolis 500. So that was nice to see. Because I kind of recall like the last year or two that the car wasn't going really well. Like we hadn't seen this type of race in there in a few years. Am I correct in saying that?
There were some good races. We had some exciting finishes. I would say Joseph Newgarden really being aggressive toward the end in the last couple of races. Palou, I think, was a winner last season that was kind of expected. And, he's been so dominant on the series. It's just about time that he won the Indy 500. But then the way that the cautions fell at the end of this race this year just set up a really exciting, unexpected finish, one lap sprint to the end, and Rosenquist just got a massive run off of turn 4. It looked like it was all David Malukas up until that point, but Rosenquist just came down that last straightaway with a head full of momentum, ended up being the closest finish in Indy 500 history.
Yeah, when they have the car like that, and definitely it helps with the late restarts.
Yeah.
But when they have it like that, it's like it's 95% of the time you have to go with the driver who's in second.
Yep, exactly right.
And that's just what happened again.
Yep.
All right. So anyway, we're going to talk about, when is the next F1 race?
It'll be Monaco, June 7th. So another week. We can talk about it next week.
Yeah, next week we'll talk about some F1 because I want to go over some options. I think this is a good time to take a look at some of the odds that are available. There'll be more drivers that might have an opportunity to capitalize on wagering. And of course, we know that it's very difficult to make money on F1 on a week-to-week basis. But, we're going to try to find that sweet spot as the better drivers that we all expected to dominate the season are now getting closer and closer to the top. So we'll see if we can come up with a good formula of when to capitalize on that. So we'll talk a little F1 next week. And then we will, of course, majority of the show will be all about the NASCAR Cup Series right here on Proline TV. So thanks for tuning in. For CJ Radune, I'm Greg DePalma, and I'll see you guys on Saturday night.